I think that we're living through the Bitcoin gold rush era. And I think the Bitcoin gold rush era started January 2024. And I think it runs until around November 2034. So it's about 10 years.
현재 우리는 비트코인 골드러시 시대에 살고 있으며 이 골드러시는 2024년 1월부터 2034년 11월까지 약 10년간 이어질 것이라고 주장하고 있는 인물은 비트코인의 인생을 건 남자 마이크로 스트래티지의 CEO 마이클 세일러입니다. 현재 스트래티지는 공기업 중 가장 많은 비트코인을 보유하고 있는 기업이며 세일러는 비트코인이라는 혁신 자산을 대표하는 가장 상징적인 인물인 만큼 그런 그가 생각하는 향후 비트코인이라는 혁신 자산이 중요한 본질적인 이유들과 크립토 시장 전망 그리고 비트코인 투자 철학에 대한 그의 심도 있는 인사이트에 대해서 함께 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
Looking out in 2024, like it seems like we have this insane confluence of factors. ETFs launched at the beginning of the year. In April, we have the halving. Correct me if I'm wrong. We have the FASB accounting rules go into effect this year. Then we have the election in November, so it normally means more liquidity. What is your general outlook for 2024? Do you think this is just going to be a complete watershed year for Bitcoin because of this confluence of all these things coming together?
I think this is going to be a good year for Bitcoin. I think we started out the year with the ETF approval, and that was a big milestone. I think that the success of the ETFs is another milestone. I think that the halving in April will be a third positive milestone. I think those three things are going to drive momentum, and I think all the marketing wars between the Wall Street firms is going to be positive, and I think the assets being normalized throughout the mainstream investment community, and so I think it'll just keep generating momentum from here. I think it's also worthwhile, I think, to make one point. I think that we're living through the Bitcoin gold rush era. And I think the Bitcoin gold rush era started January 2024. And I think it runs until around November 2034. So it's about 10 years. And I'll tell you why. Because 93.5% or so of the Bitcoin was mined at the beginning of this period. But in November of 2034, 99% of all the Bitcoin that will ever be issued will have been issued. And so that halving is very symbolic. People talk about Bitcoin, issuance coming out over the next 100 years, all the way till 2140. But the truth of the matter is, the last 100 years, you're only getting 1%. So think, and actually of that 1%, 90 basis points of it is coming in the 12 years that follow 2034. And then it's 10 basis points, 0.1%. But practically speaking, all of the block rewards are de minimis starting in 2034. It's 1% over 100 years may as well be nothing because, the daily volatility and the daily trading volume is going to render that to be somewhere between third order, fourth order, fifth order of magnitude. So that being the case, really, this 10 years is your best chance to get Bitcoin. This is the gold rush because this is the period where there's still a lot of FUD. There's still a lot of uncertainty. People still aren't sure. They don't understand digital energy. They don't understand digital capital. They don't understand digital property. There's a lot of debate in the community. Is Bitcoin a currency or is it a property? Or, there's massive debate. And a lot of people say, well, it's a currency. And since it's not legal tender or because it doesn't move fast enough or I can't buy coffee with it, it's not a good currency. So there's a lot of confusion in the crypto community. There's a lot of mainstream regulators. They think it's currency. So you see bankers say, oh, it's a currency, but it's not a good currency because I can't buy coffee with it. I can't buy things online with it. And it's too volatile. And they think that's a criticism. And so they criticize it. And then people that think that they know what they're talking about, they hear some famous person say, well, Bitcoin is not a good currency and, or the government will ban it or it's not as good as the dollar or something. And so they get afraid and they say, well, then I trust that guy, so I'm not going to buy it. So a lot of people are criticizing it for the wrong reason. A lot of people misunderstand it. And that creates lots of chaos, misinformation, stupid, misleading stories in mainstream media. It creates like bad takes on Twitter. It creates all sorts of confusion amongst Wall Street analysts. And so all of that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and just basic confusion, and then misunderstanding that causes a slow growth in demand, right? Like demand is growing, but imagine how much faster it would be growing if everybody had spent 100 hours, right? The people that criticize it, there's no way Warren Buffett spent 100 hours studying Bitcoin, right? There's not likely that everyone that criticizes it spent 100 hours studying it. They haven't read the Bitcoin Standard. They probably haven't listened to 20, 30, 40 hours of podcasts, right? So the critics are misinformed, and the mainstream investors, they have all the money, right? There's $900 trillion of wealth out there. There's only $1 trillion in Bitcoin. So 99.9% of the money, of the wealth, is not invested, right, in the asset class. So a lot of people that don't understand what this is have a lot of money, and yet we've got a 10-year period when there's going to be an explosive increase in education, right? As Bitcoin's going to go up, and as the price goes up, more people are going to get asked, and they're going to reject. They're like, stop asking me. I hate talking about this. Like, we don't like it because it's like gold. It doesn't generate cash flows, or they don't understand. If you don't understand perfect money, right? What's wrong with gold? Gold has emissions. Gold is inflationary. That's why it doesn't work. If you don't understand that, then you don't understand why digital gold is better than gold. So you don't understand Bitcoin, you don't understand money, and then you haven't really thought very deeply about property theory or capital theory. So you definitely don't understand digital capital, which means you don't understand digital energy, which means that when someone asks you, you're going to buy it, your answer is, of course, I'm not going to buy it. I don't get it. But when I say to people, right, like if everybody read all these books, if they listened to all your podcasts, if they listened to all my podcasts, if they thought about it for a few hundred hours, tomorrow they would wake up, they would all buy Bitcoin, and Bitcoin would be $5 million a coin. And then we'd be doing this podcast, and you would say, Mike, all the comments from all my followers are, is it too late? And I would say, well, it's too late for you to get insanely rich. You're not going to get 100x, right? If you buy Bitcoin at 50,000 when it's 5 million, you're going to be bragging to your kids that you got 100x your return, right? So it's going to be too late for that, but it's not too late to buy it because it's still better to buy the thermodynamically sound digital asset, which doesn't have all of the liabilities of real estate, stocks, or bonds. It's still going to go up in value faster than the S&P index. It's still going to be a better after-tax return than owning sovereign debt. It's still going to be better than owning physical property subject to acts of God, force majeure, and all the other physical limitations. So it's still going to be the best investment. It's just not going to be the investment that got you the 100x return that you were going to brag about. And so there's no reason to worry, right? Or fret. You don't want people to figure this out. Like if they figure it out, you have 10 years during which you can work and you can buy Bitcoin while everybody else disagrees with you and doesn't understand it because they're intellectually lazy or they're a different generation, right? So it's like me saying it's 1905 and in 15 years, everybody's going to have an automobile. And now okay? Well, you have 15 years to get rich in the automobile business. Figure out, are you going to set up the dealership in New York City? Are you going to start a company? Are you going to be a salesperson? What are you going to do? You have 15 years. Figure it out. This is better than that. But this is a 15-year head start. And I had this analogy. It's like you could be working at a McDonald's. You could be working for $10 an hour, right? But if you're sweeping the $10 an hour in an asset that goes up by a factor of 100, you're getting paid $1,000 an hour. Okay, so how long do you want to work at $1,000 an hour? You want to work at $1,000 an hour as long as you possibly can, because once people figure it out, then you go back to your $10 an hour job, right? So we're in the gold rush period. People are, when they think about it, they're going to realize this is the period during which everybody in the world started to realize Bitcoin is digital capital, and there's a digital transformation of money, and that you want to hop on top of that. You want to exploit that, and there's 1,000 ways to do it. Maybe it's just work really hard at your job and buy Bitcoin. Maybe it's start a company. Maybe it's do something different. You decide. But I don't ever regret any stacking I did. I mean, we bought Bitcoin, below 10,000. We bought Bitcoin probably above 60,000. I mean, at the end of the day, we never know when the world wakes up, gets rational, and then it runs through the all-time high, and then we regret not having bought more. I would encourage anybody that thinks maybe I'm too late. I mean, I think I would say, well, maybe maybe you just haven't studied this enough, and if you don't want to invest the time, maybe you don't care about money that much. It must not matter to you that much. If it matters to you, then you spend enough time to figure out whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. And there's plenty of information out there for you to come to your own conclusion.